"Don't tell anyone you're my sister," Sloane whispered, gripping my wrist. "You'll embarrass me in front of his boss. Sit in the back and stay quiet." Then she replaced my place card with one that read, "Family friend," and walked away smiling. 10 minutes later, she stood on stage and called me the family embarrassment while her fiancé laughed into his champagne. I picked up my purse and headed for the ballroom doors. That was when they opened. His CEO stepped inside, ignored the couple rushing toward her, and scanned the room. Then she said my name, and Sloane's smile disappeared before I even turned around. The CEO had not reached me yet. For the moment, all I had was Sloane's handprint fading from my wrist and a place card that said, "Family Friend." Nia stared at it, then at the seating chart near the ballroom entrance. "Your name was at the family table yesterday." I know. The old label had been peeled away. I could still see the edge of the adhesive where sister of the bride-to-be had been removed. My replacement seat was at table 12, behind a marble column, beside 3 people from Grant's gym and an aunt from his father's side who kept calling me Megan. Nia lowered her voice. "We can leave." I almost said yes. Then the photographer called for immediate family. My mother, Colleen, waved me toward the staircase, so I stepped forward. Sloane blocked me before I reached the first step. "Just the couple and the parents," she said. "I'm your sister." Her smile never moved. "We need the photo to look balanced." Seconds later, she pulled her maid of honor, Grant's college roommate, and 2 executives from his company into the frame. Nia did not say anything. She did not have to. My mother found me near the cocktail tables afterward. "Tonight is Sloane's night," she murmured. Was I making it about me? Not yet. She glanced toward my sister. "Just be careful." My father, Douglas, appeared beside her and adjusted his tie. "Let it go." "Maren, you know how your sister gets." That sentence had covered more damage in our family than any apology ever had. Grant finally walked over with 2 coworkers. He kissed Sloane's cheek, then looked at me like he was trying to remember where he had seen my name. "So what are you doing these days?" he asked. Before I could answer, Sloane laughed. "She's between things again." Grant smiled. "Consulting is a flexible word." "Sometimes," I said. "It means finding the numbers people hoped no one would check." One of his coworkers stopped smiling. "Isn't an outside consultant reviewing your expansion plan?" he asked Grant. Grant waved him off. "Someone from the board. I meet them Monday, across the room." Sloane watched my face carefully. Then she lifted her champagne glass and smiled like she had just confirmed something. She crossed, linked her arm through Grant's, and whispered something that made him glance at me. This time, his expression held no curiosity, only the confidence of someone certain I was beneath him. I had spent most of my life learning how to make success look accidental. When I won a scholarship in high school, Mom asked me not to mention it at dinner because Sloane had failed her driving test that week. When I earned my first promotion, Dad said, "Don't turn this into a competition." When Sloane quit her second job, I was told to hide the contract that had just doubled my consulting income. The message was always the same. I could have good things, as long as no one had to see them. That was why Sloane knew almost nothing about my work. Not because I had hidden it from her, but because every time I explained, she reduced it to something smaller. Independent strategist became freelancer. Corporate restructuring became temporary consulting. Confidential clients became proof that I had none. Near the bar, Nia returned with 2 glasses of water and a look I recognized. "What?" I asked. "I just heard one of Grant's coworkers say you were fired for being impossible to work with." My stomach tightened. "That's what Sloane told them, and that you're jealous because she's getting married." Across the ballroom, Sloane laughed with Grant's executives beneath a wall of white roses. The truth about my old company was less entertaining. I had resigned after finding that senior management had buried financial risks in an expansion proposal. My report later helped the board replace 2 executives. It was also the reason Vivian Rourke knew my name. For 6 weeks, I had been reviewing Ardent Ridge's expansion plan under a confidentiality agreement. The documents identified me only as M. Holloway. Grant's team had submitted the numbers, but our first direct meeting was scheduled for Monday. I had seen his name in the file 3 days earlier. My plan was simple: disclose the family connection before the meeting and remove myself from any decision involving him. Nia glanced toward the exit. We should go. I came to support my sister. Does she support you before I could answer? Grant checked his phone again and announced that Vivian might arrive after her fundraiser. Sloane immediately appeared beside me. Remember what I said, she whispered. Do not approach her. Why would I? Because you always need to prove something. Then the MC stepped onto the stage. Before dinner, he said, Sloane would like to say a few words about family. My sister took the microphone and looked directly at me. Sloane lifted her champagne glass as the room settled. At first, she began. I thought family meant the people who celebrated you. Her eyes found mine beyond the marble column. But sometimes family means the people who teach you patience. A few guests smiled. Then she told the story of her 10th birthday, according to Sloane. I had ruined it because I could not stand watching her receive attention. She said I cried, demanded to leave, and made our parents miss the cake. The truth was simpler. I had a fever of 102. Mom had spent the car ride home apologizing to Sloane for letting me get sick on her special day. But Sloane had polished that memory for years until it sounded like evidence. Grant laughed before she even reached the ending. I looked at Mom. She gave me a tight smile and pressed 2 fingers downward, warning me to stay seated. Dad studied his wine. Sloane raised her glass higher. Every family has someone who keeps the rest of us humble. She pointed toward table 12. Maren is our family embarrassment, but we love her anyway. The laughter came in pieces. Some guests laughed because Grant did. Others looked down, uncomfortable. One woman near the stage lifted her phone and aimed it at me. Grant did not look uncomfortable. He leaned back, smiling into his champagne like the joke belonged to him too. Nia stood first. We're leaving. I picked up my purse. Mom reached me before we cleared the table. If you walk out now, everyone will think you're jealous. I looked at her. What do you think? Her mouth opened, but no answer came. Dad joined us, keeping his voice low. This is not the time or place. No, I said. Apparently the stage was. Behind us. Sloane was still holding the microphone. She saw me move toward the ballroom doors and smiled again. There she goes, she announced. She always runs when she isn't the center of attention. Every face turned. For 1 second, I stood under the weight of all those eyes, holding a place card that called me a family friend while my actual family watched me leave. Then the ballroom doors opened. Vivian Rourke stepped inside with an assistant beside her. Grant shot to his feet so quickly his chair scraped the floor. Sloane set down her glass, smoothed her dress, and hurried toward the entrance wearing the same perfect smile she used for photographs. Grant reached Vivian first and extended his hand. She shook it briefly. Then she looked past him. Her gaze moved across the room until it stopped on me. Is Maren Holloway here? She asked. Sloane's smile did not disappear all at once. It cracked. Grant slowly turned toward me, and the room followed, as if my name had changed the direction of every light. The room stayed silent long enough for me to hear the soft click of Vivian's heels against the ballroom floor. Sloane recovered first. Ms. Rourke, she said brightly, stepping forward. We're so honored you could come. Grant moved beside her and offered his hand again. As if the first greeting had not counted, Vivian gave them both a polite nod. Then she walked past them. Grant's hand remained suspended between us. Sloane's fingers tightened around the stem of her champagne glass. One of Grant's coworkers glanced from them to me, suddenly understanding that something in the room had shifted. At the company table, a man who had laughed at Grant's joke lowered his glass. The MC switched off the microphone. Even the photographer stopped moving, camera hanging against his chest. No one seemed certain whether they were witnessing an introduction or an exposure. Vivian stopped in front of me. Maren Holloway, she said. There you are. She held out her hand. I took it, behind her. The microphone was still live. Every guest heard the warmth in her voice when she said, Maren, everyone's been waiting for you. I felt Sloane staring at me. Vivian continued before anyone could misunderstand. The board approved your preliminary recommendations this afternoon. They want you leading the final review on Monday. Grant's face changed first, not shock. Recognition. You're Imsa Holloway, he asked. Yes. He looked toward the executives at his table, then back at me. The smile he had worn all evening was gone. He knew exactly what that name meant. I had reviewed the expansion proposal carrying his signature. I had read the projections, the staffing assumptions, and the risk section that had somehow grown shorter with every new version. Sloane laughed too loudly. Maren never told us she worked with your company. Vivian looked at her. Confidentiality is one of the reasons we hired her. The sentence moved through the room more effectively than any defense I could have given. The guests who had laughed during Sloane's toast stopped looking at me. Mom stood halfway from her chair, frozen between pride and embarrassment. Dad removed his glasses and began cleaning lenses that were already spotless. Sloane's voice sharpened. I thought she was fired from her last company. Vivian's expression cooled. That is not why Maren left. She did not explain further. She did not have to. The lie now belonged to Sloane alone. Vivian gestured toward the company table. Would you like to join us? There are several people eager to meet you. I looked at the place card still in my hand. Family, friend. Thank you, I said. But I was just leaving. For the first time that night, Sloane looked frightened rather than angry. Vivian nodded as though she understood more than I had said. Then I'll see you Monday. I stepped into the hallway with Nia beside me. Grant followed before the ballroom doors could close. Sloane came after him, with my parents only a few steps behind. Maren, Grant called. I turned. His first words were not an apology. This isn't going to affect Monday. Is it you're right? I said. Tonight has nothing to do with Monday. Grant's shoulders loosened. Then I added, that's why I'm disclosing the conflict and removing myself from your evaluation. Relief crossed his face too quickly. So someone else handles it, he said. Good. An independent team will review every number. The relief vanished. He lowered his voice. Maren, whatever Sloane said in there was a joke. The joke isn't part of the report, I said. Your numbers are. His jaw tightened. Behind him, Sloane pushed through the ballroom doors, followed by Mom and Dad. Grant stepped closer. We're about to become family. That's exactly why I can't be involved. You can at least tell Vivian I'm being treated unfairly. I haven't accused you of anything. You just said they'll review everything. They were always supposed to. Grant looked toward the ballroom, where several coworkers were pretending not to watch through the open doors. Could you delay it? He asked. Just until after the wedding, number Maren. The board already has the files. That stopped him. Sloane grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the bridal lounge. You let me humiliate myself, she hissed once the door shut. I looked at her hand until she released me. You humiliated me because you thought no one important would care. Her face flushed. You knew Vivian was coming. Grant invited her. You knew she knew you. I signed a confidentiality agreement. You could have told me who you were working for. You knew who I was, I said. You just didn't think it was enough. For a second, she had no answer. Then she pointed toward the ballroom. Tonight was supposed to be mine. I sat in the back. You removed me from the family photo. You introduced me as a family friend. You called me an embarrassment in front of a room full of people. I was leaving quietly. You wanted this. I didn't invite Vivian, I didn't write your speech, and I didn't tell you to lie about me. Mom stepped between us. Please call Vivian, she said. Tell her Grant is a good man. Was he a good man when he laughed? He believed what Sloane told him. That makes it worse, not better. Mom's eyes filled. Your sister was insecure. You spent my whole life treating her insecurity like my responsibility. Dad folded his arms. Both of you ruined tonight. I looked at him. I sat quietly while she erased me. The truth entered the room on its own. No one is asking you to forget what happened, Mom said. We're asking you to help fix this. No. You want me to erase the consequences. I took out my phone. In the hallway, with all four of them watching, I emailed the board. I disclosed that Grant Mercer was engaged to my sister. requested immediate reassignment of his evaluation, and asked that every project record, revision, and internal message be preserved for independent review. Grant read over my shoulder. Preserved, he said. Yes. His face went pale. That reaction told me more than any confession could have. Nia appeared in the doorway. Reddy Sloane stared at me. You're really walking out on your own, sister. I held up the place card. You decided I wasn't your sister before I arrived. Then I walked past her. Outside, the cold air hit my face as the valet lights reflected across the pavement. Nia stayed beside me without asking me to explain or forgive anyone. My phone vibrated before we reached her car. The board had accepted my disclosure. 3 days later, the independent review team found an email Grant believed no one outside his department would ever read. The email was only one sentence. Clean up the risk section before this reaches the board. But once the review team followed the revisions, they found everything Grant had hoped would stay buried. Implementation costs had been lowered without supporting data. The revenue forecast used the most optimistic scenario as if it were guaranteed. Staffing shortages had disappeared from the final presentation. A compliance warning had been removed entirely. Grant was taken off the expansion project and lost the promotion. He was not fired that day. The company opened an internal review and reassigned his team while they examined who else had approved the changes. Vivian called me after the decision. For the record, she said, this had nothing to do with the engagement party. It shouldn't have, I replied. Sloane texted me minutes later. You destroyed his career because you hate me. I answered once. I removed myself from the review. Then I stopped responding. Mom called and said I had made my point. Dad said Grant had suffered enough. Neither of them asked whether Sloane had apologized. She had not. They still believed the problem was that I refused to rescue her. Not that she had tried to erase me before discovering I was useful. So I stopped attending events where my presence came with instructions. I stopped explaining my work. I stopped answering calls that began with, Your sister needs you, on my desk, beside Monday's files. I kept the place card from the engagement party. Maren, family friend. For years, my family had treated me like someone they could rename whenever the truth became inconvenient. That card reminded me of the night I finally stopped answering to it.